Orphée copyright enfers, whose title translates from the French as Orpheus in the Underworld, is an opera copyright bouffe, or opera copyright phare copyrightérie in its revised version. Its score was composed by Jacques Offenbach to a French text written by Ludovic Halévy copyright V and later revised by Hector-Jonathan Crémieux copyright me. The work, first performed in 1858, is said to be the first classical full-length operetta. Offenbach's earlier operettas were small-scale one-act works, since the law in France did not allow full-length works of certain genres. Orpheus was not only longer, but more musically adventurous than Offenbach's earlier pieces. This also marked the first time that Offenbach used Greek mythology as a background for one of his pieces. The operetta is an irreverent parody and scathing satire on Gluck and his Orfeo ed Eurydice and culminates in the risque copyright galop infernal that shocked some in the audience at the premiere. Other targets of satire, as would become typical in Offenbach's burlesques, are the stilted performances of classical drama at the Coma copyright Ifrana sectionnaires and the scandals in society and politics of the Second French Empire. The infernal galop from Act 2, Scene 2, is famous outside classical circles as the music for the can-can. Saint-Saëns borrowed the galop, slowed it to a crawl, and arranged it for the strings to represent the tortoise in the Carnival of the Animals. Performance history. The first performance of the two-act, opera copyright bouffe version took place at the Centre des Bouffes Parisiennes in Paris on October 21, 1858 and ran for an initial 228 performances. It then returned to the stage a few weeks later, after the cast had had a rest. For the Vienna production of 1860, Carl Binder provided an overture that became famous, beginning with its bristling fanfare, followed by a tender love song, a dramatic passage, a complex waltz, and, finally, the renowned can-can music. In America the work played in German at the Start Theatre, on Broadway, from March 1861. It had its Czech premiere in 1864, under Adolf Hitler. It had a run of 76 performances at Her Majesty's Theatre, in London, beginning on December 26, 1865, in an adaptation by J. A. Plancher copyright. A four-act version, designated as an opera copyright phare copyrightérie, was first performed at the Centre de l'Art registered trademark art copyright on February 7, 1874. Sadler's Wells Opera presented an English version by Geoffrey Dunn beginning on May 16, 1960. In the 1980s, English National Opera staged the opera freely translated into English by Snow Wilson with David Pountney. The production was notable for its satirical portrayal of the then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher as the character Public Opinion. The first performance was at the Coliseum Theatre in London on September 5, 1985. The D'Oyly Carte Opera Company performed the work in the 1990s. In September 1997 a production by Laurent Pelly was mounted in a former hydroelectric plant near Geneva while the stage area of the Grand Centre was being renovated, with Jan Buron and Anik Bassiers in the title roles and Mark Minkowski conducting. This production moved on to Lyon where it was recorded and filmed. The Toronto Operetta Theatre staged a controversial performance in Dec 1993 January 1994 in which Heaven was Club Med, and Hell was a leather bar. Critical appreciation. In the eyes of Claire copyright meant and Larousse the piece is une parodie grotesque et grocherie, full of vulgar and indecent scenes that give off une odeur malsaine. In the opinion of Piat, however, Offenbach's Orphée copyright is, like most of his major operettas, a bijou that only snobs will fail to appreciate. The piece was not immediately a hit, but critics' condemnation of it, particularly that of Jules Genin, who called it a profanation of holy and glorious antiquity, only provided vital publicity, serving to heighten the public's curiosity to see the piece. Roles. Synopsis. Act 1 Scene 1, Nearthobes. A melodrama opens the work. Public opinion explains who she is the guardian of morality. She seeks to rework the story of Orphée copyright and Eurydice who, despite being husband and wife, hate each other into a moral tale for the ages. However, she has her work cut out for her. Eurydice is in love with the shepherd, Arista copyright E, who lives next door, and Orpheus copyright E is in love with Chloe, a shepherdess. When Orpheus copyright E mistakes Eurydice for her, everything comes out, and Eurydice insists they break the marriage off. However, Orpheus copyright E, fearing public opinion's reaction, torments her into keeping the scandal quiet using violin music, which she hates. We now meet Arista copyright E a who is, in fact, Pluton a keeping up his disguise by singing a pastoral song about those awful sheep. Since Pluton was originally played by a famous female impersonator, this song contains numerous falsetto notes. Eurydice, however, has discovered what she thinks is a plot by Orpheus copyright E to kill Arista copyright E, but is in fact a conspiracy between him and Pluton to kill her, so Pluton may have her. Pluton tricks her into walking into the trap by showing immunity to it, and, as she dies, transforms into his true form. Eurydice finds that death is not so bad when the god of death is in love with you, and so keeps coming back for one more verse. They descend into the underworld as soon as Eurydice has left a note telling her husband she has been unavoidably detained. All seems to be going well for Orpheus copyright E until public opinion catches up with him, and threatens to ruin his violin teaching career unless he goes to rescue his wife. Orpheus copyright E reluctantly agrees. Scene 2. Olympus. The scene changes to Olympus, where the gods sleep out of boredom. Things look a bit more interesting for them when Diane returns and begins gossiping about Actaeon, her current love. However, Jupiter, shocked at the behavior of the supposedly virgin goddess, has turned Actaeon into a stag. Pluto then arrives, and reveals to the other gods the pleasures of hell, leading them to revolt against horrid ambrosia, hideous nectar, and the sheer boredom of Olympus. Jupiter's demands to know what is going on lead them to point out his hypocrisy at great length, describing a and poking fun at all his mythological affairs. However, little further progress can be made before news of Orpheus copyright E's arrival forces the gods to get onto their best behavior. Pluto is worried he will be forced to give Eurydice back, and, after a quotation from Gluck's Orfeo ed Arida sends the gods to tears, Jupiter announces that he is going to hell to sort everything out. The other gods beg to come with him, he consents, and mass celebration breaks out at this holiday. Act 2 Scene 1, Eurydice is being kept locked up by Pluto, and is finding life very dull. Her jailer, a dull-witted tippler by the name of John Styx, is not helping, particularly his habit of telling, at the slightest provocation, all about how he was king of Boeotia until he died. But if he had not died, he would still be king. Jupiter spots where Pluton hid Eurydice whilst being shown around by him, and slips through the keyhole by turning into a beautiful, golden fly. He meets Eurydice on the other side, and sings a love duet with her where his part consists entirely of buzzing. Afterwards, he reveals himself to her, and promises to help her, largely because he wants her for himself. Scene 2, the scene shifts to a huge party the gods are having in hell, where ambrosia, nectar, and propriety are nowhere to be seen. Eurydice sneaks in disguised as a bacchanty, but Jupiter's plan to sneak her out is interrupted by calls for a dance. Unfortunately, Jupiter can only dance minuets which everyone else finds boring and awful. Things liven up, though, as the most famous number in the operetta, the Galop Infernal starts, and everyone throws himself into it with wild abandon. Ominous violin music heralds the approach of Orpheus copyright E, but Jupiter has a plan, and promises to keep Eurydice away from him. As with the standard myth, Orpheus copyright E must not look back, or he will lose Eurydice forever. Public opinion keeps a close eye on him, to keep him from cheating, but Jupiter throws a lightning bolt, making him jump and look back, and so all ends happily, with a reprise of the gallop. Libretto, Orpheus copyright E enfers. Recordings. Audio The operetta has been recorded many times. 1952, a historic recording by Rena copyright Leibowitz and the Paris Philharmonic reissued on compact disc, with Jean Moulin in the title role, Claudine Collart as Eurydice, Bernard D. Migny as Jupiter and Andra copyright Dran as Arista copyright E Pluton. 1978 Michel Plassin conducting the Orchestre du Capitole de Toulouse, with Michel Zar copyright Na copyright Chowl in the title role, Mehdi Mesblah copyright Azaridis, Charles Burles, Michel Trempant, Andrew copyright Malabroura, Jean-Philippe Lafont, Jane Berbier copyright, Jane Rhodes. 1987, the English National Opera production, released on That's Entertainment Records with Stuart Cale in the title role, Lillian Watson as Eurydice, Richard Angers as Jupiter and Emile Belcourt as Ariste copyright E. Pluton. 1999, Mark Minkowski conducted the operetta in Lion, with a cast including Nathalie Deshaies, Laurent Nouri, John-Paul Foucher copyright Court, VAR copyright Ronit Jens, Patricia Peatbon, Biwa Podlier, and Stephen Cole. There is a recording in English by the Sadler's Wells Opera with June Brunhill as Eurydice and Eric Schilling as Jupiter. Other recordings may be found on operadis-opera-discography.org.uk. Video In 1983 BBC television broadcast a production with Dennis Quilley as Jupiter Napoleon III and Honor Blackman as Juno Empress Yuga copyright Nye, with Lillian Watson, Alexander Oliver, Isabel Buchanan, Felicity Palmer, Pauline Tinsley, Christopher Gable, conducted by Alexander Fares. 1997, The Lion production is also issued on DVD with Minkowski conducting, Nathalie Deshaies, Laurent Nouri, John-Paul Foucher copyright Court, Jan Buron and others in a production by Laurent Pelly. This is basically the two-act version. References, notes. Sources, Amadeus Almanac, Access November 20, 2008, Amadeus Almanac, Access November 20, 2008, Holden, Amanda. The Penguin Opera Guide, London, Penguin Books, 1997, ISBN 0-14-051385-X, Orphée copyright E.O. Enfers by Andrew Lamb, in the New Grove Dictionary of Opera, ed. Stanley Sadie ISBN 0-333-73432-7, The Opera Goer's Complete Guide by Leo Melitz, 1921 version. Orpheus in the Underworld: The Guide to Light Opera and Operetta, Orpheus in the Underworld: The Guide to Musical Theatre, Orphée copyright E.O. Enfers, operettaanswers.com. External links, Orpheus in the Underworld, Scores at the International Music Score Library Project.